just talk about digital spaces the same way you talk about IRL spaces. You would never drop your kid off in front of an abandoned building on in a neighborhood in the city you didn't know with no idea what was going on inside. Hell no. You would be like, well, who's going to be there? What's going on? I'm coming in to look around, right? If your kid wants to try a new game, you play it first, then have them mirror to a TV everyone can see. Because if it's something they have to hide, then obviously, right, that's an indicator. And then you don't make it about your kid's character failing. It's never like, well, I think you like to play games that are bad. You're like, dude, I get it. You're a smart kid. I just don't trust these companies as far as I can throw them.
Hi, everybody. This is Cynthia, the founder of ScreenLessPlayMore.com. Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Megan Saxelby. If you missed part 1, you can go back and check out all the great ideas she gave us about transforming your experience of parenting an adolescent so that it doesn't suck and can actually be fun. Today, we will be discussing tech. She gives us really great concrete ideas about how to stop screen time battles and how to get on the same page with your tweens and teens about social media and find out what it is they like about it and how to warn them about the downfalls without them just rolling their eyes at you. We also talk about some good alternatives to smartphones, especially for when your kids are in those in-between years of 10, 11, 12, and they want to be connecting with friends, but you want them to be safe about it. Megan is a parenting coach, and she also does presentations at schools through her company called Wild Feelings. I, for one, will be soliciting her help in a couple of years when my boys hit adolescence. So let's jump back into our conversation with Megan Saxelby. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm psyched to be here.
It's so good to have you here. And I wonder how technology is playing into adolescence, because that's really when it seems like kids are just getting so into gaming or social media or wanting to talk to friends on Snapchat. And how should people be navigating phones and all of that when their kids are 11, 12, 13, whatever?
I mean, I think it's really complicated. So I would start off by saying, before I started coaching, I built curriculum for people. And so for different organizations and stuff. And actually, one of the things I did for 3 years was build the education foundation for the largest digital wellness nonprofit in the US called Half the Story. So I happen to know a lot about this topic, right?
Yeah.
I am a research nerd up, down, left, right, and center, and root everything I do in research and neuroscience. And so the answer is complicated, but also so is the research. I describe digital wellness as the relationship between emotional habits and digital health. That was how we described it at Half the Story, and it's a definition that I love. So when I talk to parents, they're like, well, we're going to take the phone away. And I'm like, cool, I totally support that. What are you replacing it with?
Exactly, yeah.
And that sometimes is where there's a gap, because if you're taking a phone away from a 12-year-old and not replacing it with connection, relationship, IRL fun, you have done nothing to disincentivize the phone as the place where fun, excitement, engagement, connection lives. So also, if you're going to tell their kid that they can't be on there, or you're taking their phone away, or devices are bad, and then you answer work emails at the dinner table, yikes. Because also, there's nothing that a developing adolescent likes more than pointing out hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So you also, right, so you also have to have kind of the right things in place so that they have something to replace. Because the reason the phone is so shiny and fun is because it's shiny and fun. There's a couple things you can do that works better for adolescents when it comes to digital habits, having them actually think about their digital habits. And that's actually having conversations with them about, how do you feel after you use your phone?
Yeah.
How do you go on your phone? Or if you haven't given a device yet, why do you want the phone? What do you think you're going to get? How do I help you get that in another way? My friend Jamie runs this great company called Nurtured by Naps, and her oldest is 10. She just band together with a bunch of moms in the neighborhood, and she just bought 15 tin can phones. So she had all the parents contribute. She made the order, because we all know that if you were oh yeah, we'll all buy this thing. A tin can phone, for those of you who don't know, is a Bluetooth-based landline
Okay.
where they can call each other. It's a company called Tin Can. They can call each other. They can do everything like we all did when we were kids. Um, and it's like literally basically a landline. And you can program the kind of numbers it can get, whatever.
I
So
need to
like
look
this
into
group of
that
kids,
because
oh, it's
I
the best.
wanted to get a landline, and then a friend of mine was like, "Don't do it. All you're going to get is spam calls ringing off the
Correct.
hook." And I was like,
This is
"Oh
a
no."
great this is a great workaround. Tin Can's a really interesting company. Like I don't I feel I'm like I'm not sponsored. I don't I just like, as someone who works with adolescents, I like the idea. But right, like Jamie was like, okay, we know they want to talk to each other. They want they because we also have to like let them have community.
Well, because you
Like
you
we
know,
want
we
them. We
all
all did
oh
that.
my gosh, we were on the phone for hours. I don't
I
even
can't,
know
right?
what we were.
Remember the hijinks you used to go to try to pick it up? Like, plan with your friends that they would call at, like, 10:07,
Yeah.
so you could have the phone in your room and, like, pull it up before anyone heard it. Like, all the
Yeah.
things, right? And
And you would talk for hours and hours, and it was totally developmentally appropriate because we all know that we don't want to talk to each other for 3 hours because we're in our
no,
40s, but you kind of
right,
need that in your teenage years. You
right,
have to dissect everything that
right.
happened during the day and who was
Yeah,
wearing what and what's going on. And so I think
yeah,
they are going on Snapchat because they're like, well, they have that need to do that, and nobody has a
right,
landline anymore for them to do it in
right.
a safe way in the dining room where
Mhm,
everybody can hear to make sure that they're not being a
right.
bully or they're not like, crying and, you know.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea to get, give that same sort of thing we had.
So this group of moms in Boston all gave, it's like, because again, right, it's like you got to get in front of the thing. So it's like Jamie knew that the families were like, yeah, we'll do this, and then agreed and not buy our kids smartphones. But then, right, Jamie was smart because she was like, listen, if everyone does this independently, it's not going to work. Parents are going to forget, someone's going to cave, whatever. So
Hmm.
she was like, everyone Venmo me. I don't remember how much they are. It's not an insane amount of money. She's like, everyone Venmo me X. I'm buying all 15 of them tonight. I will
Awesome.
deliver them to your homes, right? But then even that made it a gathering for the kids because that group of kids could all like get on and group chat talk. There's no one who would be like, social media is great for kids. I also just really strongly hate the companies, and that works really well with adolescents because they really don't like being played. So how can you leverage the fact that adolescents don't like being played for a fool as a reason to or like a way to get them to engage in different behavior, right?
Yeah.
Banning, and sometimes, and I think again it's like kid and context dependent, but so
Watch The Social
it's
Dilemma with your
interesting.
tweens because it will explain exactly how the algorithm is
I
playing
think
them.
yes, and I my pushback there is that if you watch it with them, they're gonna think it's
Oh,
lame.
that's true.
Um, correct, right? So it's like, actually, like, don't sit down and have, like, a family movie night where you watch it and then you keep looking at them being like, "See? See?" Like, I'm like, I don't mean to be like, "I don't know
No,
about that,
that's
Cynthia,"
actually
but I'm
a
like,
really, really good thing to
"That's
point
not gonna
out
work."
because I
Right.
think you're right that
That's
it's
not gonna work.
different because I watched it with my 10-year-old and he was all
Yes,
into it, but it would
and
be
he
very,
wants to sit next to you.
yeah, that would be
Yeah,
very
no.
different with a 14-year-old.
And you know your kid best, right? But yeah, like a 14-year-old who loves being on Instagram and you're like, sit down next to me and watch this documentary, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah,
And
true,
the
true.
message is going to get lost. But you, as the parent, can watch The Social Dilemma, watch it, clock a few facts, and then like interject those into conversations, right?
Mhm.
Have conversations with your kids about like the relationship between digital habits and emotional health, right? Like, location sharing is a perfect example, like snap maps. Um, Sometimes they don't know about default settings,
Mhm.
right? And you need to have conversations with them about, hey, a family boundary we're going to have is like we don't share location.
Mhm. And just
We
explain
only share
why.
location like with parents or whatever, right? And just explain why. And just explain why. I think that's a big piece too, is like, because I said so is never an effective response, but it becomes less and less effective when it's about technology and when they see us on technology all the time.
Yeah.
So because I said so is they're all like, What do you mean? Like, I see you on your phone 24/7, right? We also have to remember that, like, we catch ourselves in this cognitive trap, right? There's this cognitive bias called fundamental attribution error, which is when I make a mistake, it's external circumstances' fault. When someone else makes a
Mm,
mistake, it's because of their character.
mm,
We do this all the time with adolescents and tech. I'm on my phone all the time because it's for work, because I need to be in contact with grandma because she's having a health issue. I'm on my phone because of external circumstances. Therefore, it's justified and I get to do it and there's nothing wrong.
mhm.
Our kids then were like, "You're addicted."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" But we do it with everything, right? So catch yourself having conversations with kids, depending on their age. Right? It's harder and harder to say no. But the research does show, I mean, like pretty significantly, that like the negative impact of social media is much less if kids don't have access until they're 16 or older.
Yeah. And
They've had more time to just determine their own internal compass, their own values. So, for example, right, like Common Sense Media just had one that came out about AI companions
mm,
and the fact that like 11 to 14-year-olds are the most vulnerable to believing
yeah.
an AI companion, and 15, 16, 17-year-olds are so much more skeptical. We also have to think about periods of developmental vulnerability, which is that like a 15-year-old, even though sometimes they drive us nuts, is way more capable of like kind of that analytical calling BS critical thinking than a
Yeah.
10-year-old is.
Yeah.
Oh, we could talk about this forever, but there are a couple things. I think AI companions are a no, left, right, and center.
Yeah,
That's a hill I
absolutely.
would die on.
Yeah.
Is that like if you are a parent, be monitoring their AI usage, like, and again, sitting down next to a kid and being like, "Tell me about how you use AI." Like, that's not gonna work. Start with conversations about like, "Hey, like, it's so funny, it's been all over the media about, like, teens and AI companions, and I'm not asking you this question to, like, be, to, like, get you in trouble. I'm genuinely interested. Like,
Yeah.
do you use them? Do your friends use them?" And then here's the trick, though. You can't then be like, "Gotcha! You said you
Yeah.
used one, now
Yeah.
you're grounded."
Yeah.
It can't be that. It has to
Yeah.
be because the frame that works best with this age group about academics, behavior, tech, phone, whatever, is collaborative troubleshooting. Especially with older adolescents, like, you aren't the one in charge all the time, right? Like, you can't control, and also, like, they're smarter than you and they're better than you at it, right?
Yeah.
My favorite thing is all the schools banning phones, which I think is fine and great, and kids have reported actually frequently like liking it. Teachers are talking about the benefits of like cafeterias being loud again. But no joke, no surprise, the schools that it's going the best in are the schools who've brought board games back into the
Yeah.
cafeteria, are giving kids more resources, like are
Mhm.
actually letting kids have fun
Mhm.
and so I think that's a piece, but I think the other piece is we can't tell them like there's no consequences and then be like, haha, JK, there are
Well, and I
consequences.
actually saw I think it was Matthew McConaughey on some talk show.
Drew
He
Barrymore.
yeah, where he said, "Yeah, you make it
Hmm.
really generic of like, what's it like to be a 6th grader these days?"
Yes.
Or you say, "What are kids at school
Yes.
thinking about AI? What are
Yes.
kids?" And then it's not like, "What are
Yes.
you doing? Tell me what you're doing right now." It's just like
No. And
generic.
then yes. I can't yes. Like I don't love Matthew McConaughey across the board, but he does a great job in that interview, and that's actually like there's people are going to be like quit talking about research, Megan, but like I could talk there's an affective neuroscientist at USC. Her name's Mary Helen Immergino Yang, and her specialty is studying exactly what you just described, which is the adolescent propensity for the fancy research term is transcendent thinking, thinking that like ask kids to transcend the self, to think
Mm,
outside of themselves.
mhm.
I call it philosopher mode, right? Like adolescents around 11, 10, 11, 12, they're starting, they want to have these conversations. These conversations are the doorway into behavior modification. That and because ultimately, long term, it's just like the kids we know whose parents were super locked down on, let's say, like drinking or dating or whatever. And then that kid goes to college and we all know these kids, and then you were like, oh boy, like
Mm-hmm.
that kid it's the same beef I have with like charter schools that, make kids like walk on a line down the hallway or whatever, where you're like, so that's not teaching them self-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Self-regulation is a skill that we have to learn. So it's the same thing when it comes to like behavior modification around technology. We need them to be making autonomous decisions.
Mm-hmm.
We need them to start making decisions that align with their values, but we have to guide them
Yeah.
there.
You talk about like
You gotta
the
sneak
handoff
in the back
zone,
door.
right? The handoff zone is
Yes,
like you can't do
100%.
all the thinking for your kids now because guess
No.
what? There's a couple years and they're going to be gone.
And also, the example I was going to give that I forgot, which is like, right, the way that everyone's like, they've banned like cell phones and stuff like that. And everyone's like, that solves the texting issue. And it's like, no, do you know how many cloud-based, like Google Docs? Now they all
Yeah.
just have 1,000 Google Docs where like
'Cause they have
I'm
a
texting with
Chromebook.
Cynthia. I'm texting. Yeah, because they're supposed to use Google all day, Google Suite products all day for school, or they have a Chromebook or whatever, because Google was smart and like slid themselves in there as like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to use a Google Chromebook, which means now we have Google Suite customers forever, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing Apple did a decade ago with college students, but now they all just have 1,000 tabs open during the day. And guess what? You know what doesn't set off the like monitoring software? Google Docs, because every kid has permission to be on it. So they all look super attentive. They're just freaking chatting with each other back and forth in a Google Doc. They do it in Notes. They figured out how to do it in Apple Maps. Like,
Yeah.
they're going, so how do you, right? So it's like, how do you meet the need? And it's like, yeah, your kid wants to feel connected.
Yeah, because we all pass
You
notes
can,
to each other on
we all
paper.
do. 100%, right? Like, I was telling parents to do that earlier. Like, leave Post-its on a mirror, write a funny thing on a meme. Like, do the 2025 equivalent of passing notes with your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but this is why it's so hard for parents, is because it's like, there isn't just one blanket, like, don't do this, don't
Yeah.
do that. I
Yeah.
do think there are some rules, like Roblox, I think is a hardcore no.
Agree.
I would never let my kid on Roblox for a variety of reasons. And if anyone wants to ask me more, like DM me. It's just like incredibly unsafe.
Yep.
A lot of games that can have like autonomous characters, games that have unmodified chat. There's a
Yeah.
lot of manipulation out there in terms of a bunch of different things. So I think like there's some hard and fast no's. The phone's never in your bedroom,
Yeah.
ever. I don't care how old you are. I'm 42 and I try to like legit turn your family's Wi-Fi out. Right? You can do things where
Yeah.
like the Wi-Fi stops at a certain amount of time. You also have to step in at a certain point, right? They are incapable of self-regulating around the pull of the phone.
Well, because it's meant to be
Without
addictive.
guidance.
So, you know.
Correct, because they are being pitted, or 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, whatever, are being pitted against the greatest product developers in the world. So I think it's finding the balance for your family, but it's also like having a couple hard and fast no's and then curiosity around the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because if you have a hard and fast no about every facet of it, you are inviting your child to lie to you. You are inviting them to invent backdoor workarounds
Yeah.
/ like me, pretending to be my mom from the bathroom, right? Like
Yeah.
kids will do stuff because they want to get out of like discomfort, or they want to connect or whatever. And
Mhm.
also like neurobiologically during adolescence, you are incredibly important to your kid. Their peers have more influence than you do. So you can't expect that they're not going to want to be on Snapchat or connect with their
Mhm.
friends, right? But the companies that make those devices do not have kids' best interest at heart. All they care about is using emotional activation to increase time spent on device.
Mhm.
For you, for them, for everyone. So how, again, if we kind of connect it back to this play more thing, it's like your home, your relationship, like the playfulness that you are providing is the appeal to get off the device, to spend
Yeah.
time together.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household where if you found yourself in a bad situation, you could call at any point and you could say the family code word and like no questions were asked. You just had to say where you were and they came and got you and
Yeah.
you didn't get in trouble.
Yeah. That's really
And
good.
trusting that
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't gonna get. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't conversations about like, hey, like, how did we end up here? Like,
Yeah.
why were we drinking or whatever? Like those, it wasn't consequence less, right? Because we had to like have the, but it wasn't like, hey, I'm in trouble, I need you. And then they picked me up and then I got berated the whole car ride home and then I got
Right. And
grounded. That was
grounded.
not
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't what happened. And I think something for parents to think about is like, just talk about digital spaces the same way you talk about IRL spaces. You would never drop your kid off in front of an abandoned building
Yeah.
on like in a neighborhood in the city you didn't know
Yeah.
with no idea what was going on inside. Like, hell no.
Right.
You would be like, well, who's going to be there? What's going on? I'm coming in to look around,
Right.
right? It's
Yeah.
like if your kid wants to try a new game, you play it first, then have them mirror to a TV everyone can see. Because if it's something they have to hide, then obviously, right,
Yeah.
that's an indicator. And then you don't make it about your kid's character failing.
Mm.
It's never like, well, I think you like to play games that are bad. You're like, dude, I get it. You're a smart kid. I get all these things. I just don't trust these companies as far as I can throw them.
Yeah.
So blame them for making addictive and dangerous products that make your mom a crazy person. This is the rule. If you want the game, this is what you got to do. You got to play it on mirror mode so I can watch it on the screen. For X amount of days or for X amount of time until I
Yeah,
feel cool
because
with
there's
it.
so many games out there that,
Right.
of course, they want to play it. It seems really fun, and even the game might be fun, but there's so many ads, or there's ads for games that aren't
Right.
appropriate. Like they're in a perfectly
Right.
fine game, and then there's ads for
Right.
games that aren't appropriate, and then they're like, oh, well, let me just click on this because that looks kind of
Let me
cool.
just click on this. Right. Like,
And it's
well, and
a
that's
rabbit
that's
hole.
again, I would encourage parents, particularly of adolescents, to do this. Have them mirror a game and play it. And then like you not in a like you're in trouble way, but in like a let's think together way, like you kind of explain it as they go. You're like, see, this ad popped up.
Mm.
What's that ad for? Let's click that ad together.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was talking with a parent who, you know, ended up finding out that her adolescent had found his way into some like pornographic game because he just kept clicking. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like he didn't go
Yeah,
online
he
trying to
didn't seek it
find
out.
porn. The porn knew he was there and tried to pull him in. And
Absolutely.
then he found it, but then he didn't say anything because of course, it's like embarrassing and all the
Yeah.
things. Versus if you have conversations beforehand where you're like, "Hey, we don't click ads. We don't click external links. We
Right.
don't click whatever." And like again, talk about it with your own digital metacognition, your own awareness of like, I am taking a break from Instagram because like, my God, every 30 seconds, have you noticed this if you're letting your kid have social media? Have you noticed this that you get ads? Like, what do you get ads for? I
Yeah.
Googled, this is
Yeah,
where you
just
can like
keeping it
make fun of a
really
joke
open. Yeah.
and be like, I Google, like, mom's like 42. I Googled like, anti-wrinkle cream. And now I'm getting all this stuff. And like, God, it like makes me feel bad because
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
whatever. Ugh. And
Especially
also
talking
then I
about how it makes
realized,
you feel. Yeah.
right. And then you're like, God, it makes me feel bad. But you know what makes me feel worse? Knowing that these companies are like taking a Google and then trying to sell me stuff. God, it makes me annoyed.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get. And then you say, what do you get? Like, what? You're a kid. Like, what do you get ads for?
Yeah.
And then two things can happen. One is that you're modeling the relate to them, which is your true digital wellness, which is understanding how emotional habits impact digital health and then making choices that feel good
Mhm.
based on that information. But then the other thing is like you're getting an insight into what they're getting. Right. You want to create opportunities to get an insight into what they're being fed.
Because it could be ads, it could be porn, it could be the manosphere,
Hmm.
it could be toxic
Right.
content just in terms of like
In general.
views.
Right.
It could be,
Right.
really right wing, really
Hmm.
left wing, really,
Right.
who knows what it is that they're getting fed, but it'd be nice if you guys could talk about it together
Right.
and just figure it
And
out together as a team.
you want patterns of these kinds of open-ended conversations because then hopefully more often than not if they find something that really does feel scary or not value aligned or weird, like they will come to you.
Hmm.
And I feel like sometimes when I talk to parents, they're like, that never, like, that's total BS. Like, kids will never come to you and tell you when they found something weird or scary. And I'm not trying to like be a jerk, but I'm like, no, it happens all the time.
Hmm. Especially if you start
Parents
early
who
saying,
you
like, you
have
won't get in
built,
trouble. Just let
right.
me know if something made you uncomfortable.
You won't get in trouble. And again, like, it's not because I think there's something wrong with you or your character. It's because these companies are gross and doing everything they can to activate your emotions to get you to stay online. They're doing it to all of us, not just you. I struggle with it myself. You've seen me. You had to call me out the other day and
Hmm.
say, like, you know, there's even a term, like, it's so invasive now. There's a research term for it. It's called technoference, which is like technology-based interference and interfamily connection.
Hmm.
So again, the more that you can just again make it like, ugh, this is us against these companies, not
Yeah.
I know better than you, or you are dumb and young and therefore you can't resist. Or, like your most recent Substack about screen-free Sundays is so fun. And it's like, yeah, like we're gonna start doing screen-free Sundays as a family. If your kids are younger, you're planning it obviously, but with some input. If your kids are older, like invite them to be like, hey, we're all gonna put our phones away unless maybe I'm using, like, Waze to drive somewhere new that we've never been to before, or we can, like, listen to Spotify in the car, right? You can, like, make certain caveats, but it's like, invite the kid in to help plan the
Yeah,
day, and
absolutely.
we joke that, like, I grew up in a household where, like, I didn't learn this, like, just the bridge out of nowhere, right? Like, my dad was notorious for dropping us off at school, and you had to say, "I love you," no matter what kinda mood you were in, you still always had to say, "I love you," before when you got out of the car, and if you didn't, he would wait till you got our middle school, you had to wait outside until the school opened, and he would, like, wait until you were far enough away from the car that it was impossible to intervene, and then he would just start honking the horn as loud as he could and go, "Megan! Hey, Megan! Yeah, you, Megan! Megan Elizabeth Saxelby, it's your dad. I love you! I love you!" "Hey, Megan, woo-hoo," like honking, honking, and he'd be like, "Have the best day, I love you so much." Or like we'd be being a real pain in the butt about something at home, and he'd be like, "Yeah, oh, yeah, I hear you." And he'd start walking away, and you'd be like, oh, because you knew he was slowly making his way to the speaker where he was gonna start playing the Rolling Stones, "You Can't Always Get What You Want," and then just slowly turning the music up until it was too loud and he couldn't hear you anymore, and then he'd be like, "I'm sorry, what? I can't." And you'd just be like, "Oh, like, how can you still have,
Yeah.
boundaries and corrections around stuff, but not have it be antagonistic? How can you still use because boundaries can be connective,
Hmm.
but it doesn't mean everyone's gonna like it in the moment. But now that's my joke is that, like, my parents, both of them, would attest that from 11 to 14, I was super tough. And now I'm 42 and they rent a house around the corner,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm obsessed with them.
They did not give up on you. They were in it
Yeah.
for the long game.
No.
And
Mhm.
well, and I think part of this too, I'm gonna have to have you come back because we just have too much to talk about. But you talk about the handoff zone. That's a whole other thing we could talk about
Mhm.
in terms of like these are miniature adults, and we need
Mhm.
to raise them into adults. I mean, they're not miniature adults, but we
Mhm.
want them to be, and we need
Yeah.
to equip them to be able to do laundry and go into
Right.
the grocery store and know how to use money
Yeah.
and blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
And so, little by little, we got to be giving them freedom. And so, my
Yeah.
last question I love to ask everybody is just like, what's something that sticks out in your head about your childhood when you were totally free? Nobody was with you, or like no grown-ups were bossing you around telling you what to do, but you got to just
Mhm.
do some sort of thing on your own.
Oh, just like being a wild animal outside.
Okay.
Like just being like like go do whatever and be home by X time.
Mhm.
There was a retention pond behind us that our yard backed up to, and we would just like it was like kind of overgrown and whatever, and that like it would just be like, yeah, okay, bye, like disappear into the woods and like do whatever, and then like, we'll see you when we see you. And
Yeah.
I think like all the things you learn in those moments are, like the time that you like got too close to a wild animal and like
Mhm.
everyone got scared, right? Or the time that you acted brave because your friend was freaked out and you were like, well, one of us has to have it together. Or the time that just like did nothing and hung out and like climbed a tree and built a fort and were learning
Mhm.
the hard way about, well, one branch across
Yeah.
across two trees, like fun fact, like physics is real and that ain't gonna work, right? And I think we do that a lot with our two kids. Like our 5-year-old goes into the candy store by herself. I wait
Nice.
outside.
Good.
She takes the debit card because she jokes that she knows how to boop it. And she goes, I know where the Reese's are. We have this cute little candy store downtown. And I wait like outside, kind of down the street. And
Mhm.
I'm like, and she goes in. The woman, like, she's kind of like famous at this candy shop. The woman, like, knows her by name. Goes in the back. She gets like her one pack of Reese's. She chit chats. She walks up. She boops it. And then she comes out. I think we gotta we gotta find those kinds of opportunities to just like let our kids be productively uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you have to get past the threshold of like, ugh, to doing the thing. And it's the same thing when I was running around in the backyard or on these like, trails or whatever as a kid, was it was like you had so many moments of like, "Ugh, how far away is too far away?"
Right.
And
Yeah.
like how much risk is too much risk? How much of my friend's, bravado is safe or
Right.
is it too risky? Or, you can't figure that out in your brain. You have to just experience it. And we have to be willing to let our kids get sucked in the mud and come home a mess and not be like, oh my God, you're never doing that
Yeah.
again. Just be like, "Woof."
Look.
Literally, my parents were like the kings and queen of being like, "Well, looks like somebody made a tough choice." And then, like, that was it. And then it was like, "Don't get the mud all over, change take your clothes off," and then, like, I don't know, we're having dinner in 20 minutes. But there was no interrogation, there was no, like, "What did you do? What did you Like, it was just, "Looks
Found
like someone made a rough choice."
if you wanted to tell them, you would. Like, if you were super psyched about, like, "Oh my
100%.
gosh, we got to the top of the tree and we did X and we did Y," that's all you would talk about at
Yep.
dinner. But if you don't wanna talk about it,
Right,
great. You're glad that you're not interrogated.
right. Right. But they knew because we weren't interrogated, then more often than not, we would talk openly at dinner
Mhm.
about whatever shenanigans we got up to. But also, that's part of the sort of balance we walk as adults in the lives of adolescents is how do you move from the manager to the mentor?
Mhm.
And part of that is like letting them make choices that we wish they wouldn't
Yep.
and just letting that happen. Letting them fall in the mud or do whatever, yeah, make whatever dangerous decision that would you have said no if you were there? Probably. Was there a tragic, like a terrible outcome? No. So,
Yeah.
okay, right? We
Doesn't kill
just
you,
gotta
makes you
kind of
stronger.
let that be. Kids need more independence.
Yeah.
Kids don't need to be micromanaged. I mean, like Life 360 is like the worst thing that ever happened to families, in my opinion. You don't need to know where they are all the
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
We can see bad decisions they're making and we jump ahead of them to save them, but what are we really saving them from? Are we saving them from something or are we actually saving ourselves from
Yeah.
our own discomfort?
Yeah. Well, how can people get in touch with you? Because you do
Yeah.
talks to schools, you do
Yeah.
one-on-one coaching for parents.
I do all kinds of things. Yeah. So I do talks for schools. I do one-on-one coaching for parents. I also do group coaching. I've had like a group of friends before who all wanted to like work together because they all want they're raising their kids kind of in the same space and time and they want everyone kind of on the same page. So I do all kinds of stuff. But the easiest way is my email is just megan@wildfeelings.co, not .com, .co. But yeah, email's great. My website is wildfeelings.co, and then same thing on Instagram, wildfeelings.co, and the Substack is also called Wild Feelings.
You're so
But yeah,
great.
thanks so much for having
Oh,
me. This was so great.
thank you so much because really, you are so full of amazing ideas. So watch out. Your phone's going to be ringing in a couple of years from me.
Thank you. Thank you.
If this episode was helpful, tap follow so that you don't miss the next conversation. We put out new episodes every week. Thank you so much for listening to Screen Less, Play More and being part of the community. We really appreciate it.